Lady of Milk.
Good evening, everyone. I'd like to call this meeting of the Dartmouth School Committee to order for Monday, December 12th, 2016. Would you please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I'd ask you to please remain standing as we take a moment to remember a former Dartmouth educator, Jean LaBelle, who was an educator at Dartmouth Middle School and also did some time coming back after retirement and spending some time as security, I believe, at Dartmouth Middle School as well. Please be seated. Well, good evening once again, everyone. I'd like to remind you that this meeting is being videotaped by Dartmouth High School. Mr. Parati and his students, I don't know if they're here this evening, but they will be. Hello back there. The Dartmouth High School television production students, and this meeting will be televised for future broadcasts on Dartmouth TV, on DC TV, as well as the Dartmouth High School TV Media YouTube channel. So please check that out. I understand and I've actually seen a few of them, there's lots of great programming coming from Dartmouth High School. Roll call, Mrs. Boucher.
Mr. Nunes?
Yep.
Dr. Karafotis?
Yes.
And Mr. Oliver?
Here.
And we also have Stacy Hartman, our student rep. Here.
Thank you very much, and I did receive to my colleagues, I did receive a message from Dr. Jenkins that she will be a little bit late as she's attending her child's concert this evening. Next up, we've allotted 10 minutes for anyone wishing to speak on any of tonight's agenda items. Anyone wishing public comment. If you'd like to comment on any of tonight's agenda items, I'd ask you to do so at this time. Please approach the podium. I will take that as a no. Next up, looking for a motion to approve the regular session minutes of November 7th, 2016.
So moved.
I second it.
I have a motion by Mr. Nunes, a second by Dr. Karafotis. On the motion, any discussion? Chair hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Next up, I'll entertain a motion to approve the executive session minutes of November 7th, 2016.
So moved, Mr. Chairman, with the stipulation that they be held until the matter for which they are intended is completed.
I second it.
Thank you. I have a motion by Mr. Nunes, a second by Dr. Karafotis. On the motion, any discussion? Chair hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Okay, thank you. Next up, I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Gifford to introduce this month's Spotlight on Kids.
Okay, thank you very much. So I'm going to bring that up here. Tonight we have the high school. It looks like we have the entire high school here. I'm not quite sure, but Dr. Gould has invited several different groups to present to us tonight. So we welcome them to the podium.
Invite the adults who are their advisors to come on up. I understand Mr. Brodsky will be a little late because he's downstairs working with the kids to have a special demonstration of a robot. Right away, before I call the first group of people up, like much here at Dartmouth High School, these five programs call for kids to be part of something bigger than themselves. And to me, that's very meaningful, both educationally and I think just as a life lesson. And I think that'll come through. First, I want to comment that the theater company with Shirley Guerrero and Dennis Lawrence, who do an excellent job, recently completed the Neil Simon production Fools. And I want to ask them to come on up. So Dennis and Shirley, come on up, please.
Good evening.
Good evening.
This is Shirley Guerrero, and I'm Dennis Lawrence Jr., and it's a pleasure to meet you, and a lot of you are big supporters of our program, and we thank you for that. But the whole story, how it should unfold, it should be told by the children and the students that we work with day in and day out 3 times a week, Monday, Wednesdays, and Sundays, to what we think do top-notch theater. And I'm going to call up Abby Richard, who is the president of the theater company, and I'm going to call up Stacy, who is the secretary of the theater company as well, and they'll tell you a little bit about the program, because out of the mouth of babes, they speak the truth. So ready.
We would like to thank the honorable members of the school committee for inviting us to attend this evening's meeting and allowing us to introduce you to the Dartmouth High Theater Company. I would like to introduce our officers here tonight. I'm Abigail Richard, the president. This is Stacy Hartman, our secretary, Dennis Lawrence, our director, and Miss Shirley Guerrero, our co-director. 6 years ago, high school administrators had a vision to combine our drama club and the musical organization that existed individually and to create a unified theater program. Retaining the services of Ms. Guerrero, who is a music teacher in the Dartmouth school system, and Dennis Lawrence Jr., co-founder of the South Coast Children's Theater, the Dartmouth High Theater Company was formed. Ms. Guerrero and Mr. Lawrence had previously worked together at South Coast Children's Theater, so the creation of DHTC as we know it today grew rapidly into what we believe is one of the premier high school theater companies in our area. Our club has reached out to thousands of theater-going families and has created a high school family beyond imagination. We have presented Murder at Luigi's, The Odd Couple, Seussical the Musical, Miracle on 34th Street, Legally Blonde, A Christmas Carol, Babes in Toyland, and Disney's Little Mermaid, which much to our happiness was performed before sold-out audiences. This year, we have presented Neil Simon's Fools and are looking forward to our production of the musical Young Frankenstein in April. Our organization has participated in the Massachusetts Educational Theater Guild's competition, where high schools compete throughout Massachusetts for accolades. We have received a number of Best Actor, Actresses, Costume, Set Design, and Original Music Awards from this festival. We also received a Bright Spark Disney First Place Musical Competition Award when we competed nationally at Walt Disney World in 2011. We also participate in the New England Theater Conference High School Musical Adjunction Program.
Our past productions have also incorporated elementary and middle school students, and our theater company has worked with the Dartmouth Middle School and their theater company as we shared sets with them, props and costumes, and we recognize that the DMS Drama Club is a great theater program which only contributes to the continued growth of Dartmouth High Theater Company. We recognize our program would not be the success it is if we were not having the continued support of you, the members of the school committee, Superintendent Dr. Gifford, and our principal, Dr. Gould, and his administration, and we thank you for that. We also have the valuable support of our parents who give unselfishly of their time, raising funds, building sets, designing costumes, and more. This incredible support allows us to present the shows that we do, and we love them for that. But more importantly, we are proud to say that DHTC is a place where all are welcome. Our theater company knows no boundaries and is accepting to all who show an interest in the performing arts, be it on stage or backstage. We are an organization which teaches respect for others while at the same time building self-esteem and reinforcing teamwork to achieve a common goal, that being the presentation of the performing arts. Our theater company has a motto which we all believe to be true and is instilled in us by Mrs. Guerrero and Mr. Lawrence. We join as strangers, become friends, and we leave as family. DHTC is an incredible experience for us and our fellow students, and together we are all making memories to last a lifetime. We thank you for your continued support of our program, and we look forward to seeing you at one of our future presentations. Thank you.
Thank you. I would just like to say, ladies, that I've had the opportunity to attend several, and they're amazing. They're absolutely amazing, and I want to thank you for all that you do for the theater company, as well as for the wonderful performances. And thank you to you too as well. Thank you.
Thank you, ladies. Thank you, Dennis. Thank you, Shirley. The next person I want to call up is Mr. Rob Perotti. I knew when we hired Mr. Perotti that we were getting 19 years of experience, but I never knew what type of energy he would bring to the high school. This summer, he volunteered his time over a number of weeks and personally renovated his classroom to give us the capacity here at the high school to film on site. He has all types of sets for TV news broadcasts and drama, and he's really putting demands on the kids that are new and different, and he brings a tremendous amount of energy. Welcome, Rob. Come on out.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. I'd like to introduce my students, Riley, Nick, and Vabo. And for our media club, we have a short video, but they have specific jobs that we're producing to produce an after-school talk program, and we have a short video that we'd like to show you. If we can get out of this. That might be Mr. Galasha. I just have to get to the desktop. Oh, there it is. There we go. We can see. There it is. Yeah, it's all set. Thank you.
Right After School, a show made by students for students. I'm your host, Riley LeCon. We have an excellent show for you today, starting off with Ms. Xavier and Dr. Fortin talking about PBIS and the new Dartmouth Pride Card system. Plus, we have the top 5 ways you can get organized this semester. Don't miss our student spotlight and tons of skits from students here at Dartmouth High School. Stay tuned. We'll be right back after these messages. Hello, welcome back to Right After School. So for our Spirit Week special, we wanted to kick it off with a bang. So right now we have Dr. Gould who's here to talk to us today. Hello, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Riley. Thank you for having me.
So, how long have you been the principal at Dartmouth High School?
This is my 3rd year at Dartmouth High School.
Alrighty, I wanted to start off with something a little bit non-traditional, something you wouldn't really expect with an interview with the principal. But what's one interesting fact about you that no one else in the school really knows?
I think that my, well, some people do know about it. Like, I collect comic books. And
I didn't know that.
I'm kind of pretty crazy about collecting comic books. I have, like, the first appearance of Wolverine.
That's so cool.
I have the original art from books from the 1960s and stuff that I hang on my wall at home. And that's something I'm into. And sometimes some of the students find out, or I mention it to them, and they're wearing, like, a Batman shirt, and I talk to them. And if they're looking in my office, I show them the original art, and it's a lot of fun.
Welcome back to Right After School. That was some amazing footage of the field trip. I felt like I was really there. It got me very interested in the program. So, can you describe the 4 learning centers? How were they historically significant?
Yes, all right. The first one was classroom. So you go upstairs and all the kids are just sitting in a little desk and they learn about their horn book, which is like a paddle with words on it. They learn some spelling and some arithmetic, which is math and fun stuff like that. And then there's games where you go outside and you play games like races, that.
Yep, lovely
And
name.
sack races.
That's my favorite.
Yeah, some sack races, and
Jacob's Ladder.
Jacob's Ladder. All right, and then spinning, you use like some crazy tools called a spindle to literally spin wool, and that's pretty cool. They like that one. And penmanship, personally my favorite. You write with ink.
So you said your favorite was penmanship. What was your favorite center to do?
Penmanship was fun too. The children really liked learning how to use the ink.
So, do you think it was difficult to stay in character and follow the script that you have?
I don't think it was too difficult because we practiced a lot, so that made it easier.
Right now I have this week's student spotlight. Remember last week it was Ethan, last week now I have Logan Ballerino. Hello, welcome.
Hi.
So what grade are you in here?
Sophomore.
Alrighty, what is your favorite subject in school?
Favorite subject in school? Probably math because it's easy to me, and a lot of people say it's like a foreign language, but no, you just gotta do the numbers. So I've been in the band for about 3 years, starting my 8th grade year. Marching band, we just practice outside a lot, and the whole thing, yeah, like you said, it's not lazy at all. It's crazy active. We usually do practices Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and then Friday are usually football games, which is why I like them so much.
Welcome back to Right After School. Now we have a very special interview as the art club is also part of our live studio audience. Here with me I have Serena Turner and Mrs. Cronin, who's the head of the art department here at the high school. Hey guys, welcome.
Thank you for having us.
Alrighty, so you guys are the art club. What kind of stuff does the art club do here?
So basically, right now we're building the art club to be driven toward community, studio student work, and
Scholarships?
scholarships.
We're back with Right After School. Joining me today are have Ms. Xavier and Dr. Fortin here to talk about PBIS at Dartmouth High School. Hello, welcome.
Hi, so excited to be here.
Oh, yeah. What does PBIS stand for?
Let's say it together. Okay, we're gonna say it together. Positive behavior, interventions, and support.
That's awesome. Alrighty, this is Riley Hunt signing off for the way after school. See you next time.
So that's just a little taste of our show that we're doing after school. It's about staff, students, and people here that are involved in the school here at Dartmouth High School. And I'd like just to hand it over to our host, Riley LeConte.
Hi. So that show is something that we do after school on Tuesdays and Wednesdays. So usually on Tuesdays we like to pre-produce. Huh? I thought you said something. Okay. Usually on Tuesdays we like to pre-produce. We like to plan who's going to be on the show. We have to gather up all of that information beforehand, make sure that everyone knows where they're going to be, when it's going to happen, what they're going to do. It's a lot of fun. The pre-production process is a lot of fun because it shows that it's something that's really your own and something that you get to make yourself with people that you either just met or you've known for a while. Like I've just met these guys this year, and it's already been a wonderful time working with them. I just love the dynamic that we have, and this show is really something that I'm proud of. It's something that I can say is my own, and I'm actually using it as experience for college, as this is a field that I would like to get into one day. So it means a lot to me. Alrighty, that's it for me.
So I'm Nicholas McMaster, and I'm a freshman, and I actually just joined Media Club, and I had edited the first 2 shows, but we haven't really gotten to the show 3 because I didn't meet Wednesdays because of those snow days and the half days and all stuff like that. But it's a really fun thing, and it's something that I am interested into, and I love just editing is something that's really cool. And actually, I had directed a show too that didn't go as well. Some mistakes were done, but it was all good, and I definitely learned a lot from it. Bebo, do you wanna?
Oh, sure. Is it working? Yes. Oh, okay. Oh, wow. Okay. Hello, my name is Volleyball, and I would just like to say I like talking. So that I don't know, like I'm doing the cameraman in the media club. I'm a freshman, just saying. Just because I have a mustache doesn't mean I'm a senior. Okay, so I do the cameraman thingy. Yeah, look at these steady hands. Yeah, so I do the cameraman thingy. I'm usually camera number 3, which is like right to like focused on Riley. If you went to the room, I guess. If you don't know, it's okay. You can go whenever you want. And then, yeah, it's fun. I like recording people. Not like the weird thing, but like recording people. Oh yeah, I edited. I like the Apple computers they have. They're really cool. Like they have like USB ports, and the keyboard is fun. Yeah, I like the Apple computers. I like editing. I like everything about Media Club. I don't have a script, so I don't know what to say. Thank you.
I love it. Well, thank you to all 3 of you. Some great, wonderful production. I look forward. Are we going to be able to see the shows on your YouTube channel?
Definitely. DHS TV Media, that is the YouTube channel, and you can see all the episodes that are currently on there right now. I think episodes 1 and 2. And as you can see, this is something that we're all really proud of. We all work really hard on it every week. We pre-produce on Tuesday, but like to film on Wednesday. It's something that we put a lot of time and effort into, and we're glad that you appreciate it. Thank you for having us.
Thank you very much.
And when I say energy, you can get the sense of energy.
I love it.
I enjoy it, I'll tell you. It's wonderful, and it's nice to see it. Thank you, kids, and thank you, Mr. Parati. The next person I'd like to introduce leads a great group of kids, and they produce a great product in the spectrum. Will Higgins is a scholar who I think gets the most out of his kids, and it's a pleasure to work with him. Come on up, Will. Come on up, kids. Thank you, Mr. Higgins.
Thank you. Hi, everybody. It's an honor to be here. I'm Will Higgins, and I am the advisor for the Spectrum. This is actually kind of serendipity because we actually have the next issue of the Spectrum is coming out tomorrow morning. And we brought some issues here to pass around so everybody could take a look if you guys want to hand those out. We are the student newspaper at Dartmouth High School. We are written by students. We try to write about things that students are interested in. We kind of consider our audience to be students. We publish probably about every 3 weeks or so. We have a website that is at the top here, dhsspectrum.com, if you want to read us online. I think you can see in this particular issue, this kind of is sort of representative of some of the things that we try to write about. So there are 4 pieces in here. There's an article by Marissa Parisi, who's just not here tonight, but we're going to introduce the editors in a second, about safety pins and about how they've become sort of a symbol of safety in the school and around the country. We have an opinion piece on the bottom of the front page about how Dartmouth High School stands for the Pledge of Allegiance and what students have to say about that. Ariana Rebello wrote an excellent movie review of Fantastic Beasts, the new Harry Potter movie. And we have a winter sports preview on the back by Chloe Martinez. And so we generally tried to kind of write about some of the things that students are talking about. The editor's job really is to kind of keep their ear to the ground and know what is traveling through the hallways. And we try to take some of those things on. We've won quite a few awards over the last several years for our writing and our layout especially. This year is unusual. We generally, the Spectrum is generally run by a group of seniors. You know, generally you kind of work your way through. It's like sports, right? You kind of get to the end and the seniors kind of generally run the show. And it just so happened this year that 4 really talented freshmen somehow showed up to write for the newspaper last year. I'm not sure exactly where they came from, but they were very, very talented writers. And we graduated a bunch of seniors last year. And so this year we're lucky to have 4 sophomores who are sharing the editor-in-chief position this year. So we're calling them co-editors-in-chief, and they've been doing a fantastic job so far. They're writing well above their weight. I don't think they quite realize that. And I'll introduce them now. So this is Ariana Rebello, Mary Bancroft, and Michelle Sherman. Marissa Parisi is not able to be here tonight, but she's also the 4th editor. And maybe what I'll do is I'll turn it over to you guys. Maybe you guys can just say quickly what it is that you enjoy about writing for the Spectrum, and or maybe a little bit about what you do write.
Hi, I'm Ariana Rebello. For the Spectrum, I usually write reviews and opinion pieces on movies, and I'm glad I have the opportunity to be a co-editor-in-chief on the newspaper because I see myself continuing on with a career in journalism in my later life.
I'm Mary Bancroft. I'm a sophomore. I like to write about issues that really concern the students, stuff that they talk about when they want to talk about when they get the newspaper, and something that's more controversial. And I really like writing for the Spectrum because writing is my passion, and it's something that I want to do in my career.
I'm Michelle Sherman, and I'm also a sophomore. And like Mary said, I have a passion for writing, and I love how in the newspaper I get to write what I enjoy, which is basically anything, honestly. And it's awesome to get the chance to write.
So we also just wanted to thank the school committee and the school for supporting our efforts and for supporting free speech at Dartmouth High School. It's not easy sometimes to do that, but we appreciate it. And I think that schools in our area recognize that we are a student newspaper and that we are a community that does respect the freedom of speech in this particular format. So thank you very much.
I want to thank you and your students for being here this evening. I personally love school newspapers from a journalistic standpoint, and just what you mentioned, the investigative journalism, as well as just being able to write about what's passionate to the students as well as what's important at the high school. So thank you very much.
This is under wraps until tomorrow morning, so you can't hand this out to anybody.
Thank you.
Thank you, ladies, and thank you, Mr. Higgins. The next person is really neat. He's the type of science teacher that most people wish they had. When you go by the high school in the morning, you'll see catapult-like structures outside, like we're under siege by King Richard. They're called trebuchets, I've learned. And he brings a lot to the science classroom, but he's also the advisor of the Robotics Club. And I've seen him perform here in competition with other schools across the state, and he does a great job. He fosters enthusiasm for this, and he leads a great bunch of kids. Mr. Brodsky, please come up. Bring your model and your kids, please. Thank you. Please welcome Mr. Brodsky and his Robotics Club.
So we're on our way slowly.
I can hear it.
As usual, it's kind of a last-minute thing with us. We don't have anything prepared because we were trying to make the robot work until actually about 30 seconds ago, but it's working. Great news. We have this is the third year of our robotics team. It's an after-school program, and every year the game changes. They have to do a fairly complicated game that is completely different every year, so the teams can't get really good at it year after year. And we go to a couple of big tournaments a year. We were just at one this weekend, and we got kind of schooled. I think we learned a lot from it, and I'll let these guys fill you in on that. The game this year involves firing these little wiffle balls up through a hoop, and then picking up the yoga ball, and there's a few other ways to score points. The goal is to score more points than any of the other teams out there. It is an authentic engineering experience that I couldn't give the students in a classroom. It's teamwork and technical knowledge and real-world problems that they have to solve, and they simply can't solve it themselves. They have to work as a fairly large team, like right now, to solve something that is really, really hard. As you can see. How are we doing down there, guys?
Bad. At least they're honest.
Yeah, that's true. We're judged on a number of different things, not just how well the robot works. We also have, at the competition, we're judged on teamwork, we're judged on a sportsmanship kind of thing, how well we're working with other teams, and how well we keep an engineering notebook, which I think one of these guys has with them. No? It's all right. Just paper. All right. We good to go again? So this is part of the First Tech Challenge, which is often called, they call it
Velocity Vortex?
Velocity Vortex is the name of the game. First Tech Challenge for inspiration in science and technology. The goal was to create an engineering and science forum that is similar to sports. So if you go to an event, it's people cheering, it's people yelling, it's people with painted faces, and they're all cheering for science and tech, which is really cool. And it really works. It's this complicated game that everyone's playing against each other, and the competitive aspect comes out, and it's sports for nerds. Go ahead.
We usually use the wall as a field, but
Here. Wait. This is part of the end game of the program.
Do you want to
So
show
like
the tassel first?
about the game. So like at the end game, if you want to, your robot has to lift this ball like really high, like this high.
yeah,
This high. And guess what we can do with no other team?
Right.
Look at that.
You ready?
We just got it.
All right.
It's much cheap.
Uh-oh, that doesn't sound good.
No.
Oh,
No.
so good?
there's just, it's not the best.
No.
So as you can see, we got a lot of work to do before our next competition, which is January 7th.
No, that's the wrong one.
It's really, one great thing is how dedicated the students are to it. Today, they've been down there every day during their lunch periods, working on the robot. And today they were talking about who's available Christmas Eve and who's available Christmas Day over break. I am not available. So putting that out there, they'll take it home and do that sort of thing. the night before the competition, they brought it home and worked 11 hours on it. They made it a little bit too big, which kind of became very difficult for us. We working there, Nick?
I think it's tricky coming. No, okay, it's not in good shape.
Nah, it's not in good shape. We took a beating last tournament.
So and I see that you're controlling it through your phone.
Well, okay, this is the school's phones, so we get, the competition sets the certain phones that we can use.
Okay.
So they, there's a receiver on the robot and there's a transmitter, which are connected to the two controllers. And the two controllers can do different things. Like for one of them, it controls the robot and it uses a pusher here to push beacons, which is also another element of the game, which it can push beacons to line up with the controller and use both of these. And it can stand like that and push a beacon. And then the second controller can move the linear slides, which are just control holding up the ball. And then, let's see, because this is all messed up, I don't know. No. Just no. Keep going. Oh, yeah, oh. Those go up.
Wow.
Pretty high.
A robot has a tendency not to work when something important is about to come up.
Yeah. No. Just no. Just keep going.
Just keep going?
No. I think we can fire the cat. Yeah, we can fire it through there.
You're a pretty good team.
Get a field goal. You're gonna hit the thing. You're gonna catch it. Guys, we're wrapping up. Oh no. Oh, maybe fire. Maybe, possibly.
Yeah.
Very cool.
All right, can we get out of here? Extended position, awesome.
Yes. Mr. Nunes?
Are they, everybody's making something of this nature, are they all per se the same size?
Yeah, well,
Do you have parameters to make something of this?
they all have to fit into an 18 by 18 by 18 cube,
Yeah.
which is a lot more difficult than it seems. But there's no like weight restrictions or anything like that, and you can choose whatever you want to do with your robot.
Right.
It just has to do the score on the game only. So, but it's really up to the engineering team to figure that out.
Thank you.
Thank you, boys.
Thank you very much, gentlemen.
I don't know about you folks, but if I was sitting here as a 15-year-old, 16-year-old boy with two of my best buddies, I'd be wrestling on the floor blaming them for it not working. And literally, these guys, they're looking at it through an analytical lens. They're not arguing. They're not blaming each other. They're diagnosing problems, and they're moving on. So thank you, boys.
A lot of collaboration and teamwork.
Somewhere down the line, there's
exciting.
going to be a rover on Jupiter or Saturn,
Yeah.
and these guys are going to be involved in it. I can see it coming, seriously.
It's also worth noting, that the training, while very similar to what NASA has done in its astronaut program, the technology that they have in their possession is way more advanced than the first lunar missions and all the other things that NASA did a long time ago. So
Absolutely. And
you can see that on the classroom level now.
And to see kids with technology, to see how intuitive they are in terms of making it work is really fascinating to me. Having attended these tournaments both at Walpole last year and then here this year when we hosted was tremendous. To see the competition, to see their barriers, to have my 10-year-old son who came with me explain to me how this stuff works, who's fascinated by it. It's really exciting, but I'm just impressed by their sense of poise. Because for 16-year-old boys, 15-year-old boys to be that composed and it not work and be under the spotlight and be like, all right, it doesn't work. That's maturity. That's impressive. So thank you, Sam. Thank you, kids. The next person who comes here is truly, I got to say, like the rookie of the year for us. He leads a bunch of kids. He is truly the epitome of someone who sees the world as being part of something larger than himself. And I think you know who I'm talking about, Mr. John Bro and Unified Sports and the kids he leads. Mr. Bro, come on down, please. Thank you, Mr. Bro.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Dr. Gifford, Mr. Oliver, members of the school committee, thank you for having me tonight. I just want to talk a little bit briefly about our Unified Athletics program and what it offers to the students here at Dartmouth High School. For those of you that are unfamiliar, Unified Athletics is just a educational and athletic program that allows students with regular education students and special education students to come together, and it uses sports as the vehicle for them to unify together. Here at Dartmouth High, we have unified track and unified basketball. Track is a spring sport for us, and basketball is a fall sport. We're excited to announce that we're going to be starting bowling in the spring. It's something that the kids really enjoy. So we have actually Mrs. August is going to help start bowling with us. So it's just really cool to see the growth that our program has had in the few short years that it's been a part of the school system. Mr. Unks has been great. He's started it's called United Sound, but it's very similar to our program. It brings the regular ed kids together with the special ed kids, and they get to unite through music. So from where we started 3 years ago with just track and field, to see how much it's flourished in such a short period of time is incredible. I think what's really neat about our program is that besides bringing together a population through sports, the intrinsic values that these students can learn extend way beyond the playing fields. The values of acceptance and inclusion, they just get reverberated through the school and through our community. And tonight I'm lucky enough to have Kobe Serpa. He's been incredible with our students, the special needs students, and his regular ed peers as well. And I'll let him speak to what the program has kind of done for him and for the community. Thank you, though.
So I started Unified Athletics last year, and I wish I started earlier, but I started off the Unified Track after my hockey season, and it was probably one of the best decisions I've ever made because being with the kids is just so much fun, and some people think that because they aren't technically the same as us that they would be different, but I've actually created some very strong friendships with kids on the Unified team, both special ed and regular ed, and it's changed my view on what I want to do for the rest of my life. I originally wanted to do physical therapy, and now I'm thinking of actually doing a special education program, and I'm probably going to do that because I just love working with the kids so much. And it's nice to have unified basketball in the fall, and I play ice hockey in the winter, and then I come back with unified track to end the year in the spring, and it's just a great way to end off the year. Especially this year, being a senior, I'm going to miss having the kids around so much. So it's partly why I want to continue with a career path like that, because I feel like it's going to be a hole in my life once I'm not here in school with them. So thank you.
As you can see, I think the power extends just beyond athletics, which the program starts with, and the values that Kobe has learned are just like many of the other partners that we have. And again, it's just something that I think will reverberate throughout the school, and then the community in a few years, once people like Kobe, graduate from college and find a career path that, is perfect for them. But I just wanted to thank you all for having me this evening. It's a pleasure to do the work that I've done, and I can't wait to keep on doing it in the spring. So thank you.
I want to thank you, gentlemen, for presenting. What a wonderful opportunity.
I do want to thank Dr. Gifford and the school committee for giving you an offering of some of the things that happen here at Dartmouth High School on a routine basis. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Gould. And before you go, just a quick thank you to all the faculty, staff, and students that presented here this evening, as well as you, Dr. Gould, the theater company, the media club, the Spectrum newspaper, the Robotics Club, and the Unified Athletics program. Just wonderful opportunities for the students here at Dartmouth High School. And it's really, from a school committee standpoint, it's really wonderful that we get to see now, what goes on, just even if it's just a little bit of a taste. So thank you very much, Dr. Gould.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Next up, I'm going to turn it over to our student representative here at Dartmouth High School, Stacy Hartman, for her report. Good evening, Stacy.
Good evening. Well, as you've just seen, there's just so many opportunities for the students of Dartmouth High School outside of the classroom, and it really makes for an enriched learning environment in and outside of the classroom. I also would like to recognize our athletes because it's notable that one Dartmouth High athlete at least made the super team on the standard times for the fall sports. So for football, I would just like to recognize Colin McCabe, Liam Caulfield, Cole Jacobson, Luke Clark, Nate Ellis, and Kyle Sullivan. Victoria Labrie made the team for volleyball. Cross country, Greg Martin and Maddie Lynch made the team. For field hockey, Aaron Tatro made the team. And for golf, Justin DeBortoli made the team. So congratulations to all of them. I would also like to congratulate the Dartmouth High Marching Band because they were able to perform at Epcot in Disney World this past week, and that must have been an incredibly exciting opportunity. I'm sure Mr. Nunes can attest to that. Also, congrats again to the Dartmouth High Theater Company for their successful production of Fools last weekend. It was very well attended, and they had a successful run. Also, I would like to thank the school committee for allowing the National Honor Society to speak at the last meeting. The volleyball tournament was extremely successful. We were actually able to raise over $2,100 for the international charity, and that is just incredible. It's completely insane, so we're so grateful for that opportunity. And that's about it for now.
Well, thank you,
Yeah.
Stacy. Next up, under old business, school committee policy, Canine therapy assistants, second reading and vote. I'm going to turn it over to our assistant superintendent of schools, Ms. Roy.
So we have the policy IMG, which was brought to you at the last meeting. We have made no changes to the actual policy. If you remember, Dr. Jenkins had asked that on the procedural guideline, we add the site conditions for the visit. So you'll see on the back of your second packet, we brought the update to the policy subcommittee last week, and they've approved it to move forward for a second reading.
Any comments, questions from my colleagues? Mr. Garth.
I just have a couple of questions that I'd like us to consider. The first involves things I learned this week through a variety of sources, one of which was a request for a therapy animal. I wonder if, in one sense, our policy is perhaps too narrow, because it is my understanding that more than dogs can serve the function that we're addressing here. And rather than have to revisit every time someone wants to bring in a different type of animal, I wonder if we'd want to change the word therapy dog to therapy animal, and keep everything else fundamentally the same. The other question I have is, unfortunately, a very, 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 very good thing when it gets into the hands of people who have less than good intentions can result in a condition that's detrimental. And that is, there's apparently more than a budding economy in the licensing of therapy animals for the purposes of getting people on airplanes for a cheaper rate. And I think that rather than leave the discretion up to the superintendent, I wonder if we should have some guidelines for which agencies we will accept certification from and which ones we shouldn't, lest the superintendent have to spend, time out of her day trying to figure out which one of those are, because I think there is a growing interest in the nation to certify therapy dogs without, any real certification that they are. And so I wonder if we want to visit those two issues one more time.
Thoughts, Dr. Gifford? On the, at least on the licensing, what specifically, instead of leaving, as Mr. Garth stated, instead of leaving it completely up to you, be a little more specific in our policy.
If I might, I see we have Kathleen DeCampos here, and I'm wondering if she has a comment on that licensing piece. She's certainly much more of an expert
Absolutely.
than I am. What kind of facilities, perhaps, we would be looking at, and what kind of guidelines we might incorporate into our guidelines. I'm not sure.
Good evening.
Everybody. Chris, it was very hard to hear you back there. I have a hearing deficit. So I did hear part about people licensing their dogs for the privilege of going on the airplanes, and I agree with you 100%. Like with anything else, with policy, there's always people who are going to be dishonest. With regards to the two agencies that I mentioned earlier on, a couple of months ago when I did my presentation, I think that the Pet Partners is an excellent resource. That's who my dog is registered with, they're the only agency who registers other animals beside canines. So if you're looking at other animals, they're the only ones. The other agency I would recommend would be Therapy Dog International. There are strict guidelines with both those agencies, and you have to renew. You have to show proof of rabies and so forth. So I think those are two formidable agencies that I would definitely consider. And I agree with you, some of the other agencies, I'm familiar with people who get licenses too, and it's my understanding you can do this online or anywhere, so you really want to be careful, and I did stress that. So that was the one question I absolutely heard, but the other one I didn't hear.
Well, I think you addressed the other question is should we limit this just to therapy dogs, or would it be more appropriate to have a policy that includes other animals that may be certified under these strict guidelines for the same purpose, rather than having to revisit the policy each time?
Right, so Pet Partners, like I said, they do other animals, and they are guinea pigs, they do cats, they do llamas, and I don't remember all the other ones, but.
Goats.
So there's a few others that they do register, and they have to go through that same evaluation process as a canine does. It's not just, so.
Thank you. I'm personally uncomfortable with changing
Just kidding.
dog to
That's all I was
canine
interested
to
in.
animals. Generally, I think if that's the case, there's a whole other set of guidelines if we're going to be bringing llamas into the high school or any of the public schools.
And they have rabbits and so forth, so.
Dr. Karafotis.
My question is, how do you, I mean, the way you're setting up is a little different. You're going to be the person who has the dog and knows the students and works with the parents. But what if a parent comes in and says, my daughter won't come to school without her therapy dog? How do we find out whether or not this is something that's been medically diagnosed? How would you address that?
I can address that. There are 3 types of dogs right now that have different registrations. You have your therapy dogs, you have service dogs, and you have social emotional dogs.
Oh, okay.
So your social emotional dogs are primarily registered through social workers, psychiatrists, and those are people who have mental health issues, PTSD or, something along those lines. Service dogs are dogs that have been specifically trained for years. They're not a therapy dog. Those are the dogs that have the federal guideline rights to be able to board an aircraft, to be able to go into restaurants and so forth and so on. A therapy dog is a dog that has been trained to serve many. So, for example, if we had a therapy dog, and I think from what I could see with the guidelines in the past, you have to fill out an application. So a child saying, I won't come to school without my dog, and it's only going to be for a certain amount of time, a 2-hour span. So therapy dogs would be used to help children, let's say, read and so forth, but not just to come in willy-nilly and, have visits or just hang out or something like that. There's a purpose for them.
Well, that's when you referred to the airlines, people are bringing turtles on, and they're saying they need this in order to fly. I mean...
And, I would caution people who have social emotional animals, because those dogs don't have to have any training. So that doesn't mean that they're not aggressive. So if you see a social emotional dog, don't automatically go up to that dog and assume it's going to be fine, because they don't have to have any certifications whatsoever and no training. Big differences, so.
I learned a lot tonight.
Anytime you want more.
So, Mr. Garth.
Any other questions?
Would you like to, thank you, possibly, don't go anywhere yet.
Okay.
Are you comfortable, would you like to see the specific agencies that the campus?
Well, right, they're in, I think.
They're in there,
Right.
okay.
And I think, these are 2 that in my research this week also have the credibility, as Mr. Campos mentioned. I guess one of my concerns with this, whether it's the name of the animal that we're using or the name of the agency, the more restrictive we are, the more we have to revisit this as circumstances in the world change, and I don't know that we want to revisit every time when a new agency comes around or when someone wants to bring in a guinea pig, which I think, I agree, a llama shouldn't come in the building, but I'm not sure we'd have a problem with guinea pigs or bunnies or things like that. And the more we restrict this to a narrow construction right now, the more we have to revisit later on when we may not want to.
I'm personally not comfortable opening it up to just animals, to the terminology animals. I think that this, with the policy subcommittee meeting on typically on a regular basis, whether it's by month, every other month, if something comes up at that point in time, I think, that we could turn it over to the policy subcommittee to revisit the policy. And I know, I'm hoping, I don't anticipate, and maybe I'll be wrong. Maybe I'll be back here next year saying we'll be making a modification to the policy, but I don't anticipate, a lot of changes in this. So, Ms. Roy?
So the policy is, the updated part of the policy is the therapy dog section.
Right.
The school committee would vote the policy. The guidelines don't need a school committee vote,
Right.
and so we were specific to TDI, Therapy Dogs International Pet Partners, because of their rigorous registration process. So we wouldn't need to have the school committee vote on updating that if there was a third one that came in that we felt had as rigorous a registration policy.
From the agencies, okay.
So, and the policy itself already had service animals. We added just the therapy dogs. We did not add the social emotional dogs to the policy as of right now.
Any other questions? All right, I'll entertain a motion to approve policy.
Mr. Chairman, make a motion, we approve animals in school policy IMG as proposed.
Motion by Mr. Noon, second by Dr. Karafotis. On the motion, any discussion? Any further discussion? Chair hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you for all your hard work in making this happen.
Thank you, and this was a gift because today's my birthday, so thank you very
Happy
much.
birthday. Next up, new business, acceptance of gift to the Cushman School. Well, that was a nice introduction. The Carney Family Charitable Foundation awarded a $2,000 grant to the Cushman School to support the social and emotional wellness of the students. We are extremely grateful for this gift. You should have received a copy of the letter and check in your packet. Do you have any questions regarding this acceptance of the gift? This is the next one. The buddy
Mr.
bag.
Chair, if I might?
Yes,
Because
Dr.
I did
Gifford.
speak to one of the parents associated with this gift early on in the year, and I just wanted to relay the message that, she was so pleased with the services that her child received at the Cushman School in particular, and you can see the folks mentioned here, Mrs. Cheryl Cam, Mrs. Lori O'Neill, and Mrs. Kathleen DeCampos, as well as the rest of the staff, but she mentioned them specifically, just the difficulties her child was having, and that through the work of these folks and the Cushman School in particular, and the child has now gone on to another school and is receiving the same kind of wonderful services. So she was so thrilled with what the Dartmouth Public Schools has offered her child and the success of her child, that this is why this grant and this money has come forward. So once again,
wonderful.
Thanks to the staff that we have, we're able to receive this. So,
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, Mr. Garth.
Just want to know, I am not entirely sure, but I am going to abstain from voting on this because I believe I have a relationship with the foundation, so.
Okay. Thank you for that. Once again, just a big, giant thank you to the Cushman School staff, the teachers there, the administration. It was wonderful. Any ideas of what we'll be doing with the
I actually
grant?
ran right over the day I received the call to Miss McHenry, and she was so excited too, and I think she's had conversations with her staff, but I think they're looking at something, once again, with social emotional, but I don't know if they've come to any decision on that.
Wonderful.
They were tickled pink.
Good evening. Thank you again to the Carney and Larissa family. We greatly appreciate it over at the Cushman School. The plan is to use the funds to expand the sensory room. We have kind of a sensory room / physical therapy room. So to get some equipment in there to address some social and emotional needs of our students. So a tent, for example, a swing, a rocker, some calming music, just to help our students if they need a place to go to self-regulate, they'll have that place. So
Excellent.
again, we thank them very much.
That's awesome. Thank you very much. I'll entertain a motion to approve the acceptance of the gift. Motion by Mr. Nunes, a second by Dr. Kara Fotis. On the motion, any discussion?
I'm assuming we'll send a letter to the County Foundation.
Yes, absolutely. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions?
One.
Motion passes 3-0 with one abstention. Thank you once again to the Carney Foundation. Next up, we have the CPAC initiative, Buddy Benches. I'm going to turn it over to Mary Ann Santos, who's in attendance this evening. Oh, the whole crew's going to come up?
Well, most of them.
All right. I'll turn it over to the CPAC.
Well, as
Good
everyone
evening.
knows, I'm Mary Ann Santos, one of the board members of our CPAC, along with Kathleen, one of our past board members, Andrea Vargas, Deb August, and one of our teacher support people, Miss Mello from Quinn. First, we want to thank the school committee for the opportunity tonight to wrap up our Buddy Bench initiative. This idea was brought to us by Andrea back in March. The discussion came when we had a meeting or representative come in and speak to widening the circle of friendships workshop. We started raising money at the Special Olympics School Day Olympics that Mr. Capello has here in May. We received a couple large donations at that time and thought it was very doable to get the benches. The benches will be for the 3 elementary schools and the preschool. For those that aren't familiar with Buddy Benches and the concept, we do have a very quick video that I'd like you to just watch. So they can see? Okay.
What's a buddy bench? It's where if you can't find your best friends and you don't know where to go play, you sit on a buddy bench and somebody will come find you and they'll play the game.
And what did you think when you saw me here sitting by myself? What did you think?
Stick with you.
You wanted to be my friend. Have you ever sat on the buddy bench waiting for somebody to play with you?
Yes.
And how long did it take before somebody came and asked you to play?
A minute. Friends usually, when you're alone and you don't have anyone to play.
Have you ever sat on the buddy bench waiting for someone to play?
Yeah. Since we just saw them, before I've seen people walking around by themselves, and then once we got these, I seen a lot of people coming to the friends to play with. Everybody crowded!
Got a lot of buddies.
Okay, ready? Everybody in? 1, 2, 3.
So that's what the Buddy Bench is all about. We're proud to unveil our Buddy Bench tonight. We've raised the money, we've purchased them, put them all together.
Very nice.
Or actually, a few of them have put them all together. There's a plaque put on there for, just donated by the CPAC. And we'll be delivering them hopefully this week to the 4 schools that they were purchased for. And Andrea has a few words that she would like to.
Hi, thank you for having us here tonight. And when I first saw the Buddy Benches and seeing them implemented in other schools, I knew that it was something that Dartmouth needed. And I knew that we could do it because we're that kind of community. So I knew we could make it happen. And I'm so happy, we're so excited that this is actually happening. And it's going to benefit all the children. It has more of an personal importance to me. My son, he has some real social challenges, and he really has a hard time making friends. And something as simple as a buddy bench, I know that it could have made, all the difference for him. And it's not too late. I wish it had turned out a little differently for him, but that's okay. It's going to turn out differently for other kids, and I'm grateful for that. As parents, as educators, sometimes it's important for us to step in and make that connection for our children. They can't always make that connection for themselves. So I'm really excited. I'm so thankful to the principals and vice principals of our elementary schools who have come here tonight to, watch this happen. And we're looking forward to having them go back to their schools and introduce us and really having it, be implemented in a big, exciting way to the kids. There's a whole program that goes along with it. We have we're going to hand out some books that are going to go to each of the elementary school libraries just as a start off, but there's all kinds of curriculum that can go along with this inclusion and acceptance of everybody, and it's really such an important thing, and this is such a simple thing that we can do, and we're just so excited that we're having the opportunity to bring it to you tonight. Sorry, a little emotional.
One other thing on this particular bench, it goes down as a picnic table. So if they could sit on it, but then it can also go down.
Oh, neat.
And if they sat here, they can be playing a game together instead of just going into the playground. Wasn't on the script. So that's just, that's something that, Andrea brought it to our attention that she had found this, she thought it was something that we should do. As a board, we just collaborated, said, yep.
Ran with it.
We just ran with it, and honestly, the resource fair, all the raffle money that came in from there, we were able to purchase 4 of them, do all the decals, get all the, the plaques and everything else, and we hope to deliver them this week to all of the schools, and we'll get in touch with the principals on at what time we can actually deliver them, because just throw them in the back of my truck.
There you go. Thank you very much for having us here.
I want to thank you, ladies, for making this project possible through all your hard work and dedication. This district is really, truly lucky to have such a powerful and, informative as well as passionate CPAC, and tonight's just one example. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Chris?
Yeah, I'm sorry, Dr. Carol.
I would just like to thank you, too. I had read about these, and I'm saying that would be a great idea for the playground, and then when I saw that you had worked it out, I thought that was fabulous. We really appreciate it. One other thing, though, I'd like to ask, is there going to be a way that those can be put down so nobody can walk away with them?
Depending on where they're going,
Right,
where they want them. It was hard for us to decide. Obviously, each school is going to decide where it's best going to fit. So when they do that, I'm sure the maintenance people can come up with a way to bolt them down, and that's part of the plan, so that
Okay,
it can't be
thank
taken off.
Oh, good. Oh, good. Yeah, exactly.
Walk away.
Anyone else?
Thank you.
Thank you
Good,
once
thank
again.
you very much.
Next up, I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Kiley, our business manager for the FY18 through FY22 capital improvement plan update.
It's some tough acts to follow tonight.
Gee.
Wow.
You do.
Nothing as exciting as what we've heard tonight, but some things that we've put together for the FY18 to FY22, believe it or not, capital improvement plan. So you have before you the narrative detail of each of the items, a summary page, and then my memo to you talking about the FY18 recommendations. This is the first time I've brought them to you without having them in priority order. And the reason I did that is because I just want to be sure, we don't have to obviously vote on this tonight, and it's really up for discussion. So I wanted to talk about a few things with you in terms of how we're going to take a look at this priority-wise, and what other items aren't on this list that could impact how we approach this. So I'll just give you a brief overview of what we've initially got here in FY18. We have technology hardware. This is consistent with what we've been doing at least the last 6 years. The town has been very generous to grant us $200,000 a year to support our technology program in terms of hardware. So we'd like to continue that. We have, at I think 1 or 2 school committee meetings ago, we talked about and at the joint meeting, we talked about the stadium project, which would involve lighting, turf field, and renovating the facility itself. We have a boiler retrofit and replacement here at the high school, which is a project that would work with Eversource, with a rebate from them to convert the high school from oil to natural gas, which would be a significant money-saving item for us. We have flooring replacement, which is something that we've had an article a couple of years ago for flooring replacement. We'd continue that process, taking up old flooring in the schools and replacing that. We have a need to continue to look at classroom furniture throughout the district, and we've included an item there for that. We have replacement of doors and hardware, largely interior, but some exterior doors still need to be replaced on the schools. So we'd like to continue that process. We've done that through the years as well. And then to take a look, this will be our first year of a multi-year project looking at playground improvements. So really taking a good look at the playgrounds throughout the district and targeting areas in need of improvement. So those are the items that are currently in FY18. We have one more item that I think, though, bears some importance in terms of discussing how it might impact FY18 and beyond, which would be the preschool program in town. And we do want to take a look, and what I've put in the plan is, I put it in FY19, and I put it in as preschool expansion. We've talked at some length about expanding opportunity for preschool in the town. And while we're going to be undergoing the facility master plan that I think will drive some of this discussion, I think it's important for us to keep in mind that that is an important goal for us, and something that may take a sizable amount of funding to make a reality. So, since obviously the pool of funds in town for projects is limited, I think we just need to keep that in mind as we move forward with the current year projects. The facility master plan won't be done until sometime in the summer, likely. So it's not something that could be directly impacted, would be something that we'd place in FY18 in the plan, but it certainly is something that could be looked at for FY19. So we got to keep that in mind when we're looking at this. So my thought in not prioritizing this was to talk about a few things with you in terms of how you would like to see this prioritized, and get some feedback from you before we move forward. And I'd like to bring it to the next school committee meeting on January 9th, a prioritized list for your approval, hopefully at that meeting, as we need to move it forward in the process, the town process, capital improvement planning process. So I guess there's also some strategic, depending on what we prioritize, there's also some strategy in terms of how much we include in year one on this plan. So we have right now $2.4 million worth of projects in year one in the plan, and it's possible that those could be funded, but there's also the possibility that other projects in town could compete with us for funding on some of these. So we've got to keep that in mind too as we move forward. Some of these projects are things that could be deferred if we so choose to do that. And we could move some things back to FY19 and slide some things back in the plan in order to focus on some of the items here. So
Cool.
I'd like to get a little feedback from the committee.
Absolutely. Turn it over to my colleagues for any thoughts. Mr. Nunes?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Mr. Kiley. Nice to see. A couple of questions. Number one, the boiler and retrofit here at the here at the high school, I'm gonna make an assumption. I mean, I remember when we built the high school, we made it oil. Does gas run by here now, or?
We have gas in the building, ready to go.
Ready to go, okay.
So we actually, we've taken that step, and done everything we need to do for that. So that's the good news. And I don't believe that that existed at the time of the construction of the building, at least in the current capacity that we have. But it would make a lot of sense for us economically if we were to receive a sizable incentive from Eversource, which we would anticipate.
And that was gonna be my next question, is Eversource got rebate programs
They
out
do.
there that crunch this in?
We've actually already worked with an engineer that Eversource has provided us to look at the project. So we actually have some schematic design already done on this in anticipation of being ready whenever that time might come. So it's a project that, anytime we can save money long-term and offer a cleaner alternative, and, it's something that we'd like to pursue if we can.
All right, thank you. Personally, and I haven't ranked these at all, but I'll go back to what we talked about at our school committee meeting back in November, and then the joint meeting the next week with the Board of Selectmen and the Finance Committee, and that is, personally, I would like to see the turf field and lighting at the stadium be done, or, to get on the front burner, to start to put in process and everything else. It's something that's needed. As I've said, it's a stadium that's used. Technically, right now, it's kind of overused a little bit, only because of the groups that use it and everything, but I think it would be a benefit to the town, a benefit to the district. I mean, in all seriousness, just about everybody else around here has got has or is putting in artificial turf. So I think for us to do it would be a benefit to us. So, you want to talk about moving things? I haven't thought about, what you could move from one year to the next, but I can definitely work on that for the next meeting beforehand and send you my comments on that if you'd like.
Dr. Jenkins?
Hi, sorry I'm late. I was at the concert. One of the things, to follow up on your comment, one of the things that we talked about at that joint meeting was that this stadium project is not just a project of the schools, it's a project of the community. And so I wonder if we don't think about that in the way that we put this project forward, that it's not just our CIP money, because no matter how I know we're competing, but the way you think about it, it's the school gets some and, DPW gets some and everybody gets their share, but when we put this forward, it becomes a lot of our share. But I don't know if we put it forward jointly with the select board or with other groups so that it doesn't come out of our share. I think it should be a priority, I agree with you, but I think we ought to sort of explore creative ways about sort of presenting this so that it's not like, well, you're getting 1.4 for that, so you can't have anything else. This is something that's split across the entire community.
So what you're saying is not just the school department, having the school department sponsor this more than just them.
Right, exactly. So it's like, it's not just our project, it's everyone's project. And so then it's divvied up across units in the town. And then we don't necessarily have to pull back on as many other things. Because I think we were in agreement at that meeting that this is for the good of the community. It's not just for the schools. It's used by other groups in the community. And it's used by the broader community who come together for events there. And so I think we ought to see if we can partner with the select board and other groups to I don't know if they put part of it or we jointly sponsor it or whatever. So it's not perceived as our project.
No, I agree. I'm sorry.
I totally agree. I agree with you. I'm piggybacking you. I think it should be a priority.
Yeah.
And it should not just be our priority. It should be everyone's priority.
But to take it one step further too, and I don't want it to get bogged down, there was discussion at that joint meeting about putting a committee together and everything.
Oh.
I mean, and that's fine, but I don't want to get this thing bogged down, in the course of a 2-year and come back and say, yeah, I guess the football stadium should stay where it is, and now this is gonna be a project as I've said before, in my opinion, and again, I'm not an engineer, I know nothing about this, but I'm thinking that, you know, good Lord willing, if you have a mild winter, you can start it in March so that it's ready for the fall season type of deal. But, you know, the longer we wait, the longer it's gonna take to get done. And the potential is there for, you know, the more it's gonna cost. So, that's my 2 cents.
Dr. Karafotis?
I'm glad that Shannon brought that up. It's a good point, that it should be, you know, provided by, it's going to be for all of us and not just the schools, because I'm afraid if we take that hunk of change out of there, there goes the school furniture and the playgrounds for the elementary schools. But if I look at the top things, I think certainly the boiler refit, especially if we're going to be saving money as a result, would have to be up there. And the technology hardware replacement, that's always going to have to be there because everything is changing so quickly.
Thank you, Dr. Karafotis. Mr. Gar?
Just to take Dr. Jenkins and Mr. Nunes' point a little further, I think there's, and I've said this before, there is the potential that collaborating with the town can also gain us access to grant funds that would make this $1.4 million cost less of an impact on the town. You know, I think if we're truly about making this a community resource, I think that's something we can easily get to. The other point about it, it is the one item on this list that falls into the nice-to-have items. The other $1 million is all, for one reason or another, need to have. And that being said, though, it's been on our capital plan for a lot longer than I've been on the school committee. And the notion that we would put it past the issuance of our master plan makes me less than confident that we'd ever get it. So I think before we begin talking about what might come out of that master plan, it would be worth the effort of us collaborating with the other agencies in the town itself, the Park and Recreation Board. If we can get some grant monies, say $500,000 to put the subsurface in, that would make this a much more manageable number to pass through the town meeting process. We get the upgrades to the stadium, the community gets the resources, and then we talk about what's in the master plan, as opposed to doing it the other way around.
Thank you, Mr. Gar. So a couple of thoughts from my perspective. I agree with Dr. Karafotis that I think the technology hardware, being in technology, it's forever changing, so I think we need to keep the $200,000 for technology there. I firmly agree with the rest of the committee. This goes back to our joint meeting with the Select Board and Finance Committee, that the stadium is in desperate need of repair. It's long past its life expectancy. I think if we don't act now, like Mr. Garth said, the costs are going to continue to go up. And instead of being 1.4 million, we're going to be looking at 1.8 or $2 million in just a couple of years' time.
And maybe having to do it at that point too, if the stadium continues to deteriorate.
At that point, exactly. The 1.4 million, Mr. Kiley, that was conservative?
We think that's about what it would cost. I mean, that is not a complete overhaul of the stands.
Sure.
So it's to fix up the stands, make sure everything's ADA compliant, that we can anyway.
So this will repair,
but yeah,
repairs to the stands?
yeah, it would be repairs,
Okay.
but all of the lights in the turf.
Jumbotron?
Thank you, Mr. Kiley. So, boiler retrofit, obviously, I think, to me, that's a no-brainer if we're going to, utilize some savings, especially from Eversource rebates, as well as, the conversion to natural gas and being more friendly.
And on that project, that's been in the plan for some time, and we wanted to target that. Eversource, we contacted Eversource some time ago to take another look at it for when they periodically have funds available for grant programs, and we wanted to be ready. So we contacted them. They paid for the engineer to come down to take a look at it for us. And it was previously on our list for $625,000. which also included a little bit of work at Potter and DeMello, which we've done now at Potter and DeMello through grant program already. So this cost is about half of what it was on the plan for originally. So it's a good deal. It's a good,
Sure.
you know, a good fix for this building long term.
Okay, thank you. So one of the things that is probably no secret to anyone, that I'm a big proponent of expanding the preschool program in town and equal access, especially, you know, in the northern, the Potter district. And I think as much as I'd like to see some space made available, in which, I don't know if there's a possibility of that, I think we really do need to wait until, for that aspect, the master plan is completed. Because if we were to go out and purchase new modulars or additional modulars, we would limit ourselves to MSBA funding and the amount of space available. So I want to see I really still want to see some type of preschool expansion, but I do understand that at this time that it does not make sense, in my opinion, and this is just strictly my opinion, to move forward with any kind of purchasing or updating modular units at this time until the study's over. Would it make sense, Mr. Kiley and my colleagues, to maybe get a memo sent out to the other town departments stating our interest to work with them on a jointly sponsored article for the stadium?
Yep.
Or maybe not article, but process?
Right.
I think that might come before the
Sure,
article does.
I agree, I
Yeah.
agree.
Yeah, you know,
That's fine.
again, I agree with Mr. Nunes, not inviting the committee to sit down and discuss how it's gonna be used, but merely talking about how it's gonna be built, I think that's entirely appropriate.
Right. So I think
Okay.
if we could get a
Sure.
letter out to the other departments.
Sure.
And inviting them, and, you know, I don't know if how our representatives, if maybe two of us could maybe attend that meeting.
I would.
We'll, you
Okay.
know, with the school administration.
Mm-hmm. That'd be great. That sounds very collaborative.
Well, let me know.
And
Seriously.
All right.
yeah, as Mr. Noon said, so many groups do use the stadium, and it is a benefit to the whole town. And as that process moves forward, we could see how that impacts the capital improvement plan and whether it's something that's still incorporated into our plan directly, or whether this is a entirely separate item.
Before we
Mr.
go,
Guy?
we go that far, I wonder if it might not be best if we let the superintendent and the department heads talk about this without us initially. And let it be the professionals who are collaborating, who have hands in the budget, who have hands in the grants. And at some point, it would be appropriate for us to be involved, as it would the members of the other organizations. But the initial sausage, I wonder if it might not be better if it was just the professionals who were having that conversation.
I don't have a problem with that. As far as, I was actually under the impression that the departments would meet first, and that at some point, the committee, the different, the
Yeah.
different committees would come together.
Bless you.
That's what we'll do.
Dr. Jenkins?
So a number of people have pointed out to me that Old Rochester is, I think, in the process of updating their turf. And they have created some private fundraising groups. I've said, that's great, why don't you start that up yourself? So if anyone in the audience is really interested and committed to this, I mean, I think there are certainly opportunities, because this is a community resource, for potentially donations. I don't know if we've thought about advertising or things like that to underwrite some of the costs. But this might also be another good venue for public-private partnerships to help underwrite the cost, given how many people are going there for high school events, for youth league events, and I've traveled around with my kids' sports teams, and there's a lot of big sponsorship plaques and banners and whatnots in other communities at those stadiums. And so, right, we might think creatively about that. Maybe someone wants to give us some bleachers if we name the bleachers after them, right? If we're not going to do that. And so I think those are, some of the things we might want to explore.
I can think of somebody right off the top of my head.
Any other thoughts? As far as,
However,
for Mr. Kiley to bring this back at the next meeting, are we comfortable with taking some of these other ones off and just putting forward a certain amount? Do we want to keep, what do we want to do? Yes, Dr.
I
Jenkins.
think we should keep them because
Yeah.
the idea is to move the
Right.
stadium and to have it be more communal.
Right.
And then if you look at what we're requesting outside of that, I think it's sort of in line with what we've requested in past years. And so I think we leave it on there. Those are our priorities, and if, let the CIP, kind of sort that out.
Yeah.
I agree.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, we know we want the technology for argumentative sake, that's number one. Number two is the retrofit on the boiler here, and, so on forth down the line. And that, I mean, Mr. Kiley's, is gonna work on that, over the next month and bring it back to us in January, and we'll be good to go. But I think, I very much trust his judgment.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Anything else for us, Mr. Kiley?
Nope, that's great. Thank you for the feedback. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Next up, superintendent's update and review of district events.
All right, we'll just have a couple of things we'll mention tonight. I just want to thank the art department. Miss Judy Cronin again brought some artwork over to central office. We've got some
Saw that.
jewelry up, some fashion design, and we really, really enjoy when they bring new things over for us, so that was really great. As you know, the concerts are in full swing, as Dr. Jenkins just came from one tonight. And all of our schools are having them, but I also wanted to mention this weekend, the Trans-Siberian Orchestra tribute is happening at the high school, so the symphony, I'm sure that's something you don't want to miss. Obviously, our winter sports are in full gear, and from what I was told, there were over 350 students that registered to try out for sports, for the winter sports, so that's starting. And the last thing I wanted to mention was you saw Sam Brodsky's class tonight with the robotics and everything, so we know that's part of our initiatives that we want to really continue to strengthen that. So we're just starting, we call them the iSTEM clubs. So we've got 6 teachers at the elementary who have, we posted for, advisors. And so at all the elementaries, we'll be running a K-2 iSTEM club, and then a 3-5 at the same time once a week. So it'll be an 8-week session. So to kind of start to continue to bring down this interest in robotics and Legos and engineering and continue to grow that. So we're excited about that. And that's kind of it, what's going on in the district. Read the updates and all that other stuff.
And that will piggyback.
Oh, I'm sorry, I did forget one thing. I didn't have it written, but I have the, I just wanted to acknowledge Laura Gardner. You keep hearing her name, our middle school librarian, but I received a letter that she's been elected as a co-director for the executive board for the MSLA Association. And, again, she's just done so much for all library and stuff that goes on. But one thing that this group does is work with DESE and the new ESSA, the Every Student Succeeds Act, so, articulating library standards, et cetera. So once again, our librarians make us proud.
Yep.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
And I would just like to just recognize Dr. Gifford and her administrative team for all the hard work that all of you do for promoting the district. And that's something that I definitely have seen change in the past year or so. It's just between the social media, Dartmouth's Got Talent, the YouTube channels, the media club here. It's just I think people are starting to take notice.
Good.
What's all the great things that are happening in the Dartmouth Public Schools.
thank you.
So thank you to your team, Dr.
Thank you.
Gifford.
Thank you.
That's all I have. Other matters that may have not been anticipated, I'll turn it over to Dr. Jenkins.
So I received an email on Friday after the agenda was published from Rich White at the high school. They are putting together a committee to look at the use of the fitness room. And he asked me to be on that committee as a representative of the school committee. But obviously I wanted to put that forward with all of you for discussion. I told him I had to talk to all of you. I'm happy to do it, but I wanted to get your approval before I would say yes. If anybody else was dying to step in, they're more than willing to, but I'm also willing to take that on myself.
Have fun.
I guess need a little clarification on the committee to investigate the use of it?
So
or the
they're
facility
remodeling the
itself?
the fitness, and I think there's been some disputes about how the room will be used and what it will look like, and so they're trying to form a committee to come to some consensus about that. That's what I have been told, and I've asked to participate on that. I will be happy to report back to you about any decisions. That's all I know at this point.
I would just ask, before I'm okay with that, but I would just ask that you confer with Dr. Gifford in regards to.
I think what we'll do is set up a meeting with those involved, maybe Rick,
Yep.
Mr. White, and then see kind of what their idea is, and then
Yeah.
get back to all of you and see where we're going with that.
I'd be fine with that. Yes. Dr. Gould.
A number of students came to me last year and had expressed concerns over the use or renovation of the dance studio downstairs. And what I did, keeping a promise to them, I asked for a process to be formed to make a recommendation to basically say, to make sure we consensus build, not to make decisions in a vacuum, and just basically say, if we have funds to renovate this, how's it going to be done? And to give people a chance to voice what they want out of this. And I'm glad Coach White did reach out to you, because this is exactly what I wanted. And this was for advisory use only, to say this is how we want to approach it. Okay, I hope that provides some context.
It does. Thank you, Dr. Gould.
You're welcome.
Anything else for the good of the committee?
Merry Christmas. Happy New Year.
That's right.
Christmas, Happy New Year.
The next regularly scheduled meeting of the Dartmouth School Committee is January 9th of 2017. At this time, I will entertain a motion to adjourn into executive session for the purposes to discuss strategy with respect to collective bargaining with union and non-union personnel, and to conduct 2 level 3 grievance hearings.
Second.
I have a motion by Mr. Garth, a second by Mr. Nunes. On the motion, any discussion? Roll call, Ms. Boucher.
Mr. Nunes?
Yes.
Dr. Karafotis?
Yes.
Mr. Garth?
Yes.
Dr. Jenkins?
Yes.
And Mr. Oliver?
Yes.
Chris, not returning to open session, not coming back.
And yeah, if we could add not to reconvene to open session to that motion. Meeting is adjourned. Have a wonderful holiday, everyone.